Honourable Member for Mississauga-Streetsville.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm very proud to stand and speak in favour of Bill C-35, the Justice for Animals in Service Act, or Quanto's Law. And I will be splitting my time, Mr. Speaker, with the Honourable Member for Northumberland, Quinte West. This legislation would ensure that those who harm law enforcement, service and Canadian Armed Forces animals face serious consequences. And our government recognizes the special role that these animals play in protecting our communities and improving the quality of life of Canadians. This proposed legislation is aimed at denouncing and deterring the willful harming of specially trained animals used to help law enforcement officers, persons with disabilities, or the Canadian Armed Forces. The introduction of this legislation fulfills our government's promise in the 2013 speech from the throne to recognize the daily risks taken by police officers and their service animals in their efforts to enforce the law and protect Canadians and communities. The legislation honors Quanto, a police dog who was stabbed to death in the line of duty trying to apprehend a fleeing suspect in Edmonton, Alberta. Quanto had 4 years of decorated service and had participated in more than 100 arrests prior to his death in October 2013. The Prime Minister noted in a press release upon announcing this important bill that, and I quote, "This legislation honors those faithful animals and emphasizes the special role that they play. Our government is committed to ensuring that people who willfully harm these animals face the full force of the law." End quote. Mr. Speaker, in our society, service animals have become an integral part of law enforcement. They assist with search and rescue efforts, tracking criminals, searching for narcotics, explosives, crime scene evidence and lost property, VIP protection, crowd control, hostage situations, and police community relations. The RCMP currently has 157 police service dogs in service across Canada. 135 are general duty profile dogs, and 22 are detection profile dogs. In addition to the RCMP, provincial and municipal police departments across Canada have integrated police service dogs as part of their everyday service delivery in our communities. Service animals' involvement in law enforcement goes well beyond police. Canada Border Service Agencies has 53 dog and handler teams that help to protect contraband drugs and firearms, undeclared currency, and food, plant, and animal products. Additionally, Correctional Services Canada uses dogs to help stop the flow of illicit drugs and contraband into federal correctional institutions. They have over 100 dog and handler teams across Canada. As you can see, Mr. Speaker, service animals are active and indispensable members of our society who, with their handlers, work with dedication to ensure Canadians remain safe in their communities. Not only have they been given important responsibilities, but they have an unbreakable bond with the officers who have the honour to be their handlers. This is something that makes losing a service animal in the line of duty very difficult, Mr. Speaker. Constable Matthew Williamson of the Edmonton Police Service Canine Unit, who was Quanto's handler, along with the entire Edmonton Police Service, was shocked with the loss of their friend. Scott Pattison, spokesperson for the Edmonton Police Service Communications noted the strong connection that there is between the handlers and their dogs, saying that the dogs go home with the members and they are part of their own families, really. These animals perform jobs every single night on behalf of the citizens of this city with extreme courage, end quote. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, our government was extremely proud to introduce this legislation in order to ensure that harm committed against these dedicated animals becomes a criminal offense. Bill C-35 proposes criminal code amendments that would create a new offense, specifically prohibiting the injuring or killing of animals trained and being used to help law enforcement officers, persons with disabilities, and our Canadian Armed Forces. Persons convicted of such an offense could face up to 5 years imprisonment, with a mandatory minimum sentence of 6 months in prison, in cases where a law enforcement animal is killed while assisting an officer in executing the law and the offense is prosecuted by indictment. In order to ensure that persons convicted of harming police service animals are sentenced properly according to the crimes committed, Bill C-35 contains measures whereby if a law enforcement officer is assaulted or a law enforcement animal is injured or killed while on duty, the sentence for that offense would be served consecutively to any other sentence imposed on the offender arising out of the same event. This will ensure that the punishment matches the nature of the crime. Mr. Speaker, the Justice for Animals and Service Act applies to law enforcement animals, service animals, and Canadian Armed Forces animals. In practical terms, dogs would be the primary animals protected by this new legislation, given the fact that they are animals most often trained and used to assist law enforcement officers and persons with disabilities. However, Mr. Speaker, horses are also used by some police forces. Also, other kinds of animals can be trained as service animals to assist people with disabilities, and they would all be protected under this legislation. Mr. Speaker, our government's tough on crime commitment is being met with continued dedication as we work to ensure that our justice system is fair and efficient. The development of the Justice for Animals and Service Act is part of the government's plan for safe streets and communities. This plan focuses on tackling crime, enhancing victims' rights, and ensuring a fair and efficient justice. Enacting this legislation would finally codify an official offense for the act of injuring or killing service animals. We must stand up and protect these animals who are giving their lives to protect Canadians and ensure that our communities are safe. They deserve nothing less than our gratitude, care, and protection. Mr. Speaker, I strongly encourage the NDP and the Liberals to support this important legislation. I ask them to stand with the government in protecting our service animals from criminals who would seek to harm them. This legislation is something all Canadians can stand behind, knowing that the Conservative government is fulfilling its commitments to making our streets safer and protecting the most vulnerable members of our society. Thank you very much.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Winnipeg North.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, and it's interesting listening to the member. It's almost like a call to arms speech. Let's get tough on crime, safe streets, and so forth. Mr. Speaker, I suspect that the bill is going to be being passed unanimously, I suspect, by all members of the House. All members recognize the critical and vital role service dogs play today, whether it's the issue of fighting terrorism or the potential of terrorism, to the blind, and the way in which animals will support different types of services, our working dogs, the Canada Border Control, the many different law enforcement agencies, and so forth. But what I found very striking is how the member in Passion talked about keeping our streets safe. And my question to the member is, would he not recognize that one of the ways in which you can keep our streets safe in the type of passion in which he expressed would be to invest in getting and finding alternatives for young people that are living in our communities that are being drawn in by gangs might be another way of keeping our streets safe. And maybe if he could provide comment specifically as to what he believes his government is doing on that particular point.
The honourable member for Mississauga-Streetsville.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the member for Winnipeg North for his support of this bill and his comments. Mr. Speaker, prior to being elected to this place, I was the chair of Safe City Mississauga, which is also known as the Mississauga Crime Prevention Association. I spent quite a bit of time working on crime prevention initiatives, and one of the things I do know from being a past chair of that is that this federal government has invested millions of dollars in crime prevention, victim services, and other issues that help not just local police, but help organizations like Safe City Mississauga run programs that ensure that young people are not recruited into gangs. So I'm very proud to be a member of a government that A, makes sure we have proper legislation, that we have proper measures in the Criminal Code of Canada to get tough on crime, but also a government that invests in community-oriented programs that actually stop it in the first place.